Saturday night. Happy Father's Day. Amber, happy birthday. My wife got a birthday today. 29. Yes, again. Debbie Ryan's got a birthday this weekend. It's a party for us this weekend. Mason's got a birthday tomorrow. So we're excited about the birthdays. Dad's happy Father's Day. Nick Dillon on the drums, my favorite. I'm throwing a little shade at Ethan. Drumming's his favorite thing to do. So you were right here. I had to. But hey, I want to tell you this, whether you've been on the internet, whether you've been checked out, whether you were here last weekend, want to just catch you up to speed. Probably more than ever, information going in your ears. A lot of thoughts to process. So let me just catch you up to speed on what in the world we've been talking about here at Home Church. We've been doing this series called Summer Reading, and what we're doing is just going through the books or the letters of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. And so what we're doing is encouraging you to grab one of these journals and go through this with us and read it and apply it. And we just want you, just in a season where it feels like everybody's kind of disconnected, we think it would be really important that we all do something together. And so all summer, June and July, we're going to go through 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. On your way out today, you can grab one of those if you don't have one. If journaling's not your thing, if the Devo's not your thing, Dad, I get it. Download the app. Everything that's in this journal is also on the Home Church app. But we just want you with us in this. And so let me just tell you this. 2 weeks ago, we started with chapter 1. And basically, like the nutshell, like the main truth or the bottom line that we talked about from chapter 1 is let's be people that demonstrate a faith that's worth following. And so for our kids, let them see something from us like, oh, I'm going to follow that faith. And then last week we encouraged you with this idea that we should practice our faith under pressure. And because I just know for me, like in this season, there's been more pressure. I think everybody experiences more pressure in the last 3 months than they have maybe in 2019. And for me, I want to be someone that demonstrates my faith, that can apply my faith under pressure, that I'll practice my faith under pressure. And then tonight, I kind of just want to turn gears just a little, but it's the same idea in chapter 3. And I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just pulling out and creeping on Paul's letter. But in chapter 3, we're going to look at this idea that so their faith won't be shaken. So they won't be shaken. And if you could like just subtitle it or jot this down of like that we want to be people that fight for the faith of those that are following us. And so they're not shaken. And in this time, like our kids, our people that are like our friends that are not following Jesus, or maybe new followers, they're looking to us and how we demonstrate our faith. And I want to demonstrate a faith that's like, hey, I don't want to shake you with the way I'm living out my faith right now. That I want to fight for someone else's faith. And I know this, yesterday, Amber, I'm just going to like let the cat out of the bag here. Yesterday, one day before my wife's birthday, I decided it was time to get a birthday gift. So I went into Hattie Mae's, I think it's called Hattie Mae's, on the square, and I'm going to buy like these stools that go to a bar so the kids can sit in our kitchen. And I got these sweet like vintage bar stools. They were great. I'm like thinking Amber's going to love this. These girls say they're great. I get home and the bars or the stool will not hardly even slide under the bar because you have to, I guess, like responsible dads, like, they measure things before they buy things. And so I got home and they didn't fit. And so they were generous enough to let me return those. And so the stools took about a 45-minute field trip. They like got in my car, out of my car, in our house. Nope, right back to Hattie Mae's before they closed. So last night I go back to Walmart, and Amber finds these really sweet stools that are going to work for our kitchen, and we take those guys home, and they didn't fit either. And so this afternoon, like when I'm on Amazon Prime, I'm a little bit shaky about like what is the height that I need. And in this season, I just have like in regard to the stools, it's like I don't know if this is going to work. I'm a little bit shaky. And this season, like the thing that can be the most discouraging to me would be like when someone's like in front of me in their faith and they're discouraging to me. That kind of scares me. Like, I had my dad growing up, he was one of those guys that like would look at the world and see nothing but worry and say, I don't know why you're not worried too, Whit. You know, and there was a part of me was like, oh, what should I be concerned? And sometimes, you know, maybe you've experienced like, oh, you shouldn't or you couldn't or don't do that or whatever it would be. I know I've had some people maybe mistakenly, maybe they've demonstrated it, maybe they've verbally said something to me that at the wrong time it was like, you're scaring me. Or what you're doing is you're planting seeds of doubt. I'm like, maybe this world is like, maybe my faith can't hold up under the pressure of this world. And maybe I should be scared. And I just, for me, like, I don't want to, like, plant those seeds of doubt, like in my kids' life. That we know there will be difficult stretches, and it's clear in the Scripture that there will be seasons of struggle, and we're all experiencing that in some way right now. But I don't want to plant seeds of doubt in my kids' faith. And for me, for my kids, for people that are not following Jesus, I want to plant seeds like, oh, we're going to be different in the midst of struggle. And I just know as a dad, I want to demonstrate something different. So before we jump into chapter 3 tonight, like I would just ask you, like, who is it that needs you to strengthen their faith? Who is it that needs you to encourage them? And we'll see here in just a minute that who is it that maybe their faith is shaking right now? That you need to show up, that you need to do nothing but strengthen and encourage their faith. So if you could, for just like 3 seconds here, if you can just like take a quick inventory of like, who is it that needs you to come alongside of them, to strengthen them, to encourage them? Who is it that someone might be shaken right now by the season that we're in? All right, you got somebody? Participation, raise your hand. You got somebody? Okay, now you're playing or you're lying or one or the other, but here we go. 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, we're going to look at verses 1 to 10. Here we go. This is Paul. Again, he's been separated from the people of Thessalonica. They're in a major struggle, and they're disconnected, and they're new to the faith. And Paul sends Timothy for encouragement. And so here we are. Verse 1. Finally, this is Paul writing, finally, when we could stand it no longer, we decided to stay alone in Athens. And we sent Timothy to visit you. He is our brother and God's co-worker in proclaiming the good news of Christ. And here's kind of the key. This is where we're going to settle in and talk most of the rest of the night. 25 more minutes, not the rest of the night. We sent him to strengthen you, to encourage you in your faith, and to keep you from being shaken by the troubles that you were going through. I just think about it, like who are your people of Thessalonica right now? Who are the people that you need to go as an ambassador, as a Timothy, as a follower of Jesus? That if that was your mission right now, that you were sent to strengthen, that we sent Timothy to strengthen you, to encourage you in your faith, and to keep you from being shaken. I just know as a dad, like I want to begin now. Like Mason 9 tomorrow. We're halfway home, Amber. Like we're halfway to 18. If people tell me that 9 to 18, it's like it's going to get dark. So we got to be ready to go. We got to help him establish his faith, to strengthen him. Like who is it that you need to just strengthen their faith? That you need to encourage them. That they're going to be in seasons of whether it be middle school, whether it be high school, whether it be at work, they're going to have a faith that's shaken. I want to be someone that comes along and strengthens, that encourages. He says, to keep you from being shaken by the troubles you were going through. But you know that we were destined for such troubles. So we can't just like sit here and think, I'm a follower of Jesus. Nothing bad's ever going to happen to me. Like you got to blow up that thinking. The promises are all over Scripture that problems on this earth will find you. Verse 4, even while we were with you, we warned you that the troubles would soon come, and they did, as you well know. In verse 5, he says, that is why when I could bear it no longer, I sent Timothy to find out whether your faith was still strong. So who is it that they're under the gun, they're feeling the pressure, and you need to check up on their faith. I was afraid that the tempter had gotten the best of you and that our work had been useless. It's this whole idea, we got to go find out about a friend. Who is it that I can get so focused on me that I forget that my friends are trying to walk out their faith right now too. And maybe they've been tempted. In verse 6, but now Timothy has just returned, bringing us good news about your faith and love. He reports that you always remember our visit with joy and that you want to see us as much as we want to see you. Verse 7, he says, so we have been greatly encouraged in the midst of our troubles and suffering, dear brothers and sisters, because you have remained strong in your faith. In verse 8, he says, it gives us new life to know that you're standing firm in the Lord. It's like he pauses to just say, we're going to have this attitude of gratitude. We're just going to stop and give thanks to where you're at in your faith. In verse 9, he says, how we thank God for you. Because of you, we have great joy as we enter God's presence. Get verse 10. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but verse 10. Night and day we pray earnestly for you. For you. Asking God to let us see you again to fill the gaps in your faith. And I just want to spend the rest of the evening, a good 2 or 3 hours, talking to you about this whole idea of let's be people that strengthen, let's be people that encourage, let's be people that keep others from being shaken in their faith. And so let me just give you, if you're taking notes, jot this idea down, is let's show up for someone. Let's literally, like what Paul did, find out about a friend. Like, who is it that you need to, like for me, like I can just be straight up. About 2 weeks ago, Amber and I had this conversation about like, hey, 98% of my prayers this week have been about me. They're like, who is it that I need to show up? Who is it that I need to ask? Who is it that I need to inquire? Some friend I have that's walking in the faith of like, oh, they're actually in the midst of struggle and suffering and pressure as well. Like, who is it that you need to show up for? That I heard this week that it's hard to live well and treat people wrong. I want to live a life that's like I want to live well by treating people well. just this week, when I'm thinking about this whole idea of Timothy, they go through all of this just to get with the people of Thessalonica, to see how they're doing, to strengthen, to encourage them. And just this past week, I was like completely gut checked. I got a phone call. And it was like one of those numbers where you don't have it in your caller ID. And so I don't know if like you're anything like me, but like when it's not in your phone for the caller ID, I mean, you go to God in prayer before you pick it up. It's like, should I not? What's going to happen on the other side of this? Should I just let it go to the voicemail? But I've learned like when they get a voicemail, that just heightens the anxiety. So I decide, you know what, I'm going to pick up the phone. And I pick up the phone, and the first, I mean, like instantly, like what went through my mind was this of this guy. He had gotten a new cell phone, and it just hit me like if I would have saw his name, I would have filtered the call. And there was this moment for me like, I got to do better about showing up. I've got to be better about being available. And throughout that conversation, God just reminded me of like, you've got to be present. You've got to show up. You've got to check in. And in this season, I know like for you, wherever like the pressure's coming from, or wherever something looks different, or maybe it's just a new worry, maybe it's a new anxiety, maybe it's a new responsibility at work, whatever it would be, you have some kind of issue or pressure. And for me, I've learned in this season, like this is a new thing. Local pastors, like guys that are in ministry that do what I do at other churches within Mattoon, within Charleston, like we've never communicated more than right now. And I think that the common bond is the struggle, is the fact that, okay, these 2 or 3 guys can empathize. These 2 or 3 guys understand. And so throughout the course of this week, throughout the course of the previous 14 weeks, we've just been checking in on each other. Okay, this is difficult. What are you going to do now? How much did that cost? How did you online stream? Did that really cost that much? Wow. What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? How do you get the buffer to stop online? Like whatever it would be, like, how are you doing weddings? How are you doing funerals? How are you checking in with people? How do people respond to RSVP? How is your giving? How is missions? What are you doing with the rest of your staff? Like we're just checking in, like showing up. And some weeks we're good. And then I'll talk to somebody else and they're not so good. But we've been taking the time weekly to find out about one another's faith. Like, where are you at in this? Like, you just got punched. Like, let me encourage you. Let me walk alongside of you. Philippians 2:4, you'll be familiar with this, but it says, don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. And it's a simple reminder of, if you've been following Jesus for a minute, you know that scripture, but just take an interest in others. Let's be people that stop. Let's be people that show up. Let's be people that find out about the faith of our friend. Like, where are you at in this? And Paul was found it to be so critical. He's like, Timothy, you're going to go. And what you don't know is it was so important to Paul to send Timothy that he was willing for Paul to be alone at this point, was risking his life. But it was like, we got to find out about their faith. Here's this other idea that we should develop an attitude of gratitude. That it's like you got to put like praise on repeat. It's like Philippians 4:4. It says, rejoice always. Always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. That we be people that have like an attitude of gratitude. That we put praise on repeat. It's like, I think I've talked about this before, but it's like the Cubs. They won the World Series in 2016. all of a sudden there's no sports on. But goodness, I've been finding like the 2016 World Series on like every other night. You know what we do? We watch it again and again and again. It's like, oh, it's only the 7th inning. We'll come back for the 9th inning. We'll come back for the 10th inning because we know what's going to happen. We like put praise on repeat, and we celebrate like the Cubs have won the World Series more than once in the last 100 years. But this is what I know about my faith. This is what I know about my attitude. Is it doesn't happen accidentally. Like, I drift towards negative. So you have to get really intentional about your attitude, about being thankful. So whether you get out a journal and you just start, and it's as simple as saying, God, thank you for the food that you blessed us with tonight. Thank you for my wife. Thank you for when you showed up 2 weeks ago. Thank you for this situation that you pulled me through. Thank you for whatever unknown that you showed up in, that we have got to stop and give God thanks. And we sang last week, do it again. And I want to develop like a God's gonna do it again mentality. And that doesn't happen accidentally. That we have to intentionally write praise down. Or we have to intentionally live out this verse that always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. And here's the third idea, and this comes from verse 10 of what we just read. Fill the gap in someone's faith. Like, what would it look like to fill the gap in someone's faith? Like, Amber makes fun of me for this, but at home, we talk about this idea that just for our kids, I say this, I want the next generation to inherit a different situation. I want them to grow up. I want my kids to grow up where my faith ceiling is like the floor. That they grew up in a way of like, oh, we're thankful. We're grateful. We check in on people. We show up. We put the interests of others before ourselves. I want them to inherit a different situation. I want them to get it. That I want to fill the gaps of their faith. And maybe you have someone that you know that's following Jesus. And you know, there's a gap in their faith that I can fill, that I can come in, that I can talk straight to them. That I know this, like Mason, his favorite verse right now, Philippians 4:13, that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Here's this idea of like, I want Mason to believe that as an adult. I hear him, he's got it on his wrist right now, and I know it, and I believe it, and yeah, that's great, but I want to be an adult that models that verse for him. I want to believe that. I want to live that out for him. I want to fill in the gap of the faith that someone will come along as an adult. I read that, and my first thought is, I don't know. The Philippians 4:13, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. And maybe you're like, I have that one applied, but what is it? What gap of someone's faith can you fill? And maybe here's some other ones that you need to demonstrate grit when you'd like to quit. Like, where is it that you have somewhere right now that you say, I just want to quit. I want this to be over. I want to give up. I want to throw in the towel, whatever it would be. Galatians 6:9 says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Here's another one. Maybe this is a gap that we can fill. We want to be people that forget about favoritism. We want to be people that forget about prejudice. We want to be people that model something different. We want to fill in the gap for someone's faith. That Romans 2:11 says, for God does not show favoritism. As a guy, I want to put an end to my pride. I don't want my kids to pick up on a pride issue when they're living with me. As Psalm 10:4 says, in his pride, the wicked man does not seek him. In all his thoughts, there is no room for God. I want to model something different. I want them to see a faith worth following. Here's another one that's close to me right now is I'm going to choose a personal conversation over having a conversation on my social media platform. Ephesians 4:15 says, instead, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. I want to demonstrate, I want to fill the gap of someone else's faith. I don't want to model. Here's another idea. I'm going to choose compassion over canceling someone. If we run into issues with people and my gut is like, unfollow, we will maybe see you in heaven, but we're done. I don't like you anymore. No, I'm going to choose compassion. I'm going to choose empathy over just cancel. I'm out. That got weird and difficult. I want to fill the gap of someone's faith. Ephesians 4:32, it says, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. And I want to fill the gaps. When things get difficult for me in a friendship, I don't want to click or say cancel. I want to step into it. That I choose compassion. That where is it for you that you know someone, that's whether your kids, someone you work with, your spouse, that you need to begin to fill the gap in their faith. And there's this last idea. It's verse 12. This idea, demonstrate a love that's growing and overflowing. Verse 12, he says this. And may the Lord make your love for one another and for all people grow and overflow, just as our love for you overflows. So we're going to have like a love that's growing, a love that's overflowing, just as Timothy, just as Paul did for the Thessalonians. We're going to have to lead ourselves first. One quote that I make our staff nauseous with is this whole idea that the best leaders last because they lead themselves first. And so we have to encourage ourselves first, that we have to get in the habits of encouraging ourselves, of growing ourselves, of getting in the habit of getting with God. We're talking with our kids right now of like every night before bed, we're going to read the Action Bible. We're going to read Jesus Calling for toddlers. Whatever it will be like, we're going to begin to grow and encourage ourselves so our love will overflow. Wednesday of this week, we had like a bunch of cousins over. Well, not like when I say a bunch, I mean two. But we had two cousins over. And I decided we're just going to load these kids up with chocolate donuts for breakfast. Because that's what good uncles do. And these cousins are like way healthier than our family. Because they ate like one or two donuts and then that was like enough. And then they left and I ate like 18 chocolate donuts. And here's the thing, I like put those donuts in my body. And the next day I was drained. I'm 37 years old now. I had a birthday while you were gone. And when I'm having these donuts the next day, I paid for it. And it was this reminder this week of what you put in your body is what you get out. And for me, it's like, if you're gossiping on a Tuesday night, like Wednesday, it's going to be pretty hard to represent the good news. Like we have to get in the habit of feeding ourselves, of growing ourselves. And Paul says his prayer is that the Lord make your love for one another and for all people grow and overflow, just as our love for you overflows. So let's just be people that strengthen. Let's be people that encourage the faith of the next generation, the people that are trying to follow Jesus with us. And I would encourage you with this, because this is just a thought I had this week of you messed up or maybe had a moment. I know like when I was about 18 years old, I thought I had this moment. I believed this for a few months of like, well, I turned left and God wanted me to turn right and now he's gone. or I'm messed up and I'm disqualified, or I don't know if I'm someone that can come alongside and strengthen and encourage someone else's faith because I know what I struggle with, or I know my past. And this verse just really encouraged me this week. It's Psalms 139:7. It says, I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. That you go left, God's with you. You go right, God's with you. That you feel like, oh, I'm down and out. I can't encourage or walk alongside of someone. God is omnipresent. That He's with you. So let's just be people moving forward this week. The main takeaway from Thessalonians chapter 3, let's strengthen, let's encourage. Let's look out for the faith of those that are coming behind us. Let me pray for you.